Hey, boyfriend number three, Ricky. Ricky did this crazy thing that immediately endeared him to me. I was at the waterfront cafe with two friends, two girlfriends, and he walked right up to me and gave me his number and said, "Give me a call. I'd like to get to know you better." So, of course, I didn't call him. Well, not immediately, but I did call him, and I think within a couple of days I'd moved in. It's crazy. He seems to think of himself as a mentor. Since our relationship, I've often seen him with younger guys, and I was younger than he was. I learned so much from him. I was impressed by his intellectualism, but is that a word? Intellectuality? But it also intimidated me. He'd done a lot of things, he'd lived in other countries, and he saw a lot of potential in me. So oftentimes I felt like I wasn't enough, that he was actually in love with who he imagined I would become. But because of him, I was introduced to opportunities. Because of him, I left Barbados actually and studied in Brazil, which also done. We'd speak to each other in Portuguese after Brazil. Once he invited me to come see him speak at an event at Cambridge. And by that time, I was fluent in Portuguese, and so I remember a train ride where we spoke to each other in Portuguese. He was amazing, though, at languages in particular. He hadn't practiced Portuguese in years, and he just slipped right back into it. And he introduced me to Nina Simone. I remember I thought it was a man singing. Amazing artists that I now love, like Marisa Monte from Brazil, and just so many. There are too many to mention. We experimented a lot. We experimented with S&M. Yeah, I remember a bit of bondage went on in there. I There was a specific experience. I think it was the only time it happened. That's why I remember it. But being tied up, and this was shortly after we met. Yeah, this was shortly after we met. I remember at one point thinking to myself, if this guy's a psychopath, I'm dead. Yeah, that's like something that I wouldn't do now. Want to be seduced, a delivery guy. Yeah, those were some interesting times, man. But then one day he was gone. He told me he'd gotten a job in another country, and within a couple of weeks, he was gone. It was as if he died. And I think this had to do in part with his problems dealing with his own sexuality. He had an aunt that was homophobic, or extremely religious, and it was easier for him to get away from us physically, to put some distance between us, than to be with himself in a relationship with a man. I say this, but I also dealt with a lot of guilt and shame surrounding being with a guy because of my religious background. But I grew out of that as I came to an understanding that Mother Nature just throws up different scenarios and combinations to see what will work best in a particular situation, environment. And it seems as if gay people, there's this idea that resources, it's a matter of pooling resources, because the gay person oftentimes doesn't have children. So then those resources can go to the siblings, their children, the nieces and nephews. But I'm not here to tell you what causes homosexuality or why people are gay. I'm talking about the boyfriend Ricky. So Ricky, that's how that ended. And it was pretty devastating. I remember going to work with the weight of this sadness in me and not being able to tell anyone, you know? I mean, I'm sure that I had close friends at the time that I spoke to about it, but I remember distinctly walking to work and just being broken about it. But, you know, again, in a homophobic society, isn't like you can say, oh, I'm going through a, I guess you could say I'm going through a breakup right now, but then it'll be, and people probably wouldn't get into it, right? But yeah, so that was boyfriend what, number three? And we speak to this day, but I feel there was an incident in which he didn't treat me, where he said something which I think was meant to hurt me. And my understanding of that was the case, made it so that I no longer allow him access to me because I don't allow people access to me, people who will deliberately try to hurt me. And it was this thing that he said, which was that I should be taking care of my sister, but I'm doing whatever else I feel like doing. And I realized that he was trying to hurt me because I knew what my relationship was with my sister. And I knew all of the things that I did for my sister. And he didn't, but he was obviously trying to dig at me. But anyway, he's found, I guess, success in the way that he defines it. And I found it in the way I define it. So yeah, that's boyfriend number three. Hold on for boyfriend number four. See you next time.